Alrighty, I hope this video does not take me too many attempts to finish recording. That last Siren build video just took me multiple attempts because I had to keep restarting because I would lose my train of thought and just completely butcher my words. Siren was definitely a lot more complicated to explain. Luckily, Mesa's more simple. Anyway, Mesa Prime is the tennocon drop for tomorrow, and she's also getting her heirloom skin, so there's probably quite a bit of interest in her, and I just wanted to show off some of my builds for her. Some of them are more meta, some of them are just more silly and funny, and really I just want to show these builds to hopefully give you guys some ideas on what you can do. I always encourage testing out your own builds, seeing what you can come up with. I think build crafting is really fun in this game. Nothing wrong with going with the meta, but it is fun to come up with creative stuff that also does work. But just getting started, just looking at the Archon shards, I have 1 parkour velocity and then 4 heat critical shards. Now, I used to have 5, but I went with a parkour velocity shard because on most of my frames, I'm running Praetos, and Praetos grants parkour velocity, sprint speed. It's a whole bunch of bonuses that really just make you feel nicer. Yeah, sprint speed, slide, and parkour velocity. It's really good for just not exactly a stat stick. I forget what it's called. Maybe just utility. Just keep it in the back pocket. Don't worry about it at all. But on Mesa, you go with Firax Wraith, which we'll explain later. And so because of that, I feel sluggish without the extra parkour velocity. So that's why I went with this shard. Now, do you need 4 or 5 heat critical shards? Definitely not. This is just so that you can get to red crits pretty easily, and red crits are fun. And really, you don't exactly need the other Archon shards. Mesa is not very hungry for strength or duration, but regardless, with that second Mesa Prime I'm getting, I'll probably have them be a utility or, quality of life, speed frame, something. And then this one I'll probably just put all 2 heat critical shards. But getting into the build and also talking about some of her abilities, the first one is Subsumed Off, which is Ballistic Battery. I guess I'm just going to have to throw it on the screen because I cannot view it right now because all my builds have it off. But Ballistic Battery, basically you charge up a shot, making it very powerful. It's alright. You can definitely do some fun stuff with weapons that have a charged shot to it. Queller, Grimoire, you name it. And it does have the Augment, which I can view right here, Muzzle Flash. It blinds enemies within radius for 12 meters, 6 seconds. It's alright, but you can definitely live without it, and it definitely is the best ability to subsume off because your second ability, Shooting Gallery, just grants you a simple damage buff, and it also stuns nearby enemies, and it also applies to a teammate. And then Shatter Shield, this is your damage reduction. You can go up to 95%, and I think that's like 119 strength is what's needed. And then it also reflects back damage. The only problem with this is that it's like only projectile damage, so it's not area of effect damage. It can be kind of the weak area of Mesa actually. Her survivability seems really good on paper, and it definitely is good, but status effects, area of effects, they can still really hurt a lot. 95% damage reduction is a lot, but it's not exactly going to get you to level cap. And then of course, for Peacemaker, that's her Exalted, her regulators, Gun Go Bird, it's really fun. So starting off with the first build, we got Nourish. Now, there's definitely some discussion about Nourish versus Bright Bonnet. Nourish is still really good because you get the extra viral damage and all of your energy sources are multiplied or increased. In this case, with my current strength at 170%, you can see we get 2.02x energy multiplier. That's really good. If I pick up a health orb with equilibrium, that will also give me double energy. If someone runs a Xeneric energy field, that gives me double energy. If I were to have on Energy Nexus onto this build, I'd get double energy from it. The way I look at Nourish versus Bright Bonnet is Nourish grants the extra viral damage, and also it's more like energy on the move. As you're killing enemies, they drop health and energy orbs, which with equilibrium, they're all energy orbs basically, and you just get energy as you're going, whereas Bright Bonnet is probably more better for areas where you're just staying in one spot. Mobile defense, survival. That's where I think Bright Bonnet is really nice, because otherwise you're kind of having to do a pit stop as you're going through the mission for energy, and that is kind of exhausting to me, whereas Nourish, you just keep on going through the mission, getting energy. Bright Bonnet, you gotta be making those pit stops, you gotta be stopping for gasoline, and that price does quite bother you. Luckily it's not. That was a terrible joke, I'm sorry. But for most of this build, you can see we just have 160 efficiency, 167 duration. We don't care about range in this case, and then strength strength, it's either 170 or 260. It's 260 for the 4 because that's what really needs the extra damage. You don't need to have a ton of strength, but you can see 4 gets a damage multiplier from your strength, so that is kind of handy. Really 250 you should be fine with. And then Shatter Shield, you only need at least 119% strength. And then Shooting Gallery, the strength doesn't matter too much. It does not give a ginormous damage buff, but it is at least something. And then Nourish at 170 is just fine. You get 2.02x energy multiplier, 76% viral damage increase. Pretty nice. And then range, we don't really care about that. Now range is nice to focus on for level cap, but if you're just doing normal Steel Path missions, Elite Archimedia, low range is perfectly fine. You do not have to rely on the stun from Shooting Gallery. The stun is more handy in level cap. I did actually run this exact build to level cap before, and for the first few thousand levels, it works completely fine. But after a while, once you start to getting to the level 4000s, 5000s, the damage reduction from Shatter Shield is just not enough. That's where you're starting to really need the stun. But for all other content, this build works perfectly fine. You get plenty of energy, your 4 does plenty of damage. It's nice. Then we also got Arcane Hotshot. We throw heat on our regulators, and this has no problem proccing. And then Arcane Velocity is just simple fire rate. And I'll show all these builds kind of in action towards the end of the video. But next we got Bright Bonnet. Now there's definitely a few ways to do Bright Bonnet. You could have negative range. In that case, you would just throw off Stretch and Augur Reach and throw on whatever else you want to. Probably more strength is what I would recommend, because you do want some strength for the higher energy restore. And I think that if you're going to be bouncing on the mushroom the whole time, low range is perfectly fine. The one thing with low range is that, I guess I should show it here first. Low range means you got a radius of 5.1 meters. So you're really just having to be right on top of the mushroom. You can see whenever it pulses, the radius of it, it's pretty low. And so because of that, I like to throw on Stretch and Augur Reach just to get to a range to about neutral. That puts it back to 16 meter radius, and with that I'm able to have like a little bit more breathability with it. I don't have to be bouncing on top of the mushroom in order to get my energy. I can actually have a little bit of space to move around, which that's what I prefer personally. So we've got high duration, which means that our Shooting Gallery and Ballistic Battery Shatter Shield have plenty of duration. 56 seconds for this, and 67 or 68 seconds for Shooting Gallery, and then our mushrooms last for 56 seconds as well, so that's plenty of duration. Efficiency, we can absolutely tank because we're running Arcane Sculptor, which procs off of the mushroom. So we're basically at 175% ability efficiency for most of the time. Then of course we still got Prime Flow. We do not need Equilibrium because the Bright Bonnet is giving us energy. Oh, and I guess I forgot to mention you can run with Mesa's Waltz if you want to. I kind of hop back between the two. There's pros and cons to either. With Mesa's Waltz, you are not immune to knockdown. Without Mesa's Waltz, you are immune to knockdown. And then also without Mesa's Waltz, you're able to just simply bullet jump in the air and you land without a hard landing. If I quickly just throw on Mesa's Waltz, if I bullet jump into the air and also activate my 4, I will suffer a hard landing, which can sometimes be annoying. But definitely go with either. I'm either using Power Drift or Mesa's Waltz. It just changes from time to time. And then we also still have Velocity because Fire Rate Go Burt. It's really handy, easy to proc. And with this build, you're actually at the energy level to where you can just simply throw your mushrooms at the start of the mission and cast your abilities right away. Then you can bounce on them for some faster energy, and then you can just get on moving your way. Now, if you don't want to run Arcane Sculptor, because really you don't need it, you can go just without it perfectly fine. You can just replace it with either Arcane Hotshot or Molt Augmented. It's up to you. Now, there is another build you can do actually where instead of using the 2 range mods, you run Overextended, and then for the last mod slot, you can run whatever. You can go with Augur Secrets if you want to, or Umbral Intensify. My build is just not formatted to that, but you can go something like this, get a little bit more range. It's up to you. They're both pretty similar, and if you don't want to run blind range, you can. Or I guess another thing you could do is actually run Overextended with Fleeting Expertise if you're not going to run Sculptor. That makes it to where your efficiency is still at least neutral, so that's pretty handy. All of your stats are at least neutral in this case. And then again, you can run Augmented Gifted or whatever other strength mod you want to, or Arcane Hotshot. There's quite a bit of build variety that you can do. So you can try this if you want to. You can go back to the build I had at the start. It's up to you. Try your own things. I highly recommend it. And then next we have an evade build. I do feel like evade is a little bit underrated. I have not tested this in level cap, but I would like to try it. Evade grants you a little bit more survivability because invis is pretty nice. In this case, we go with a bunch of more duration to really help out evade. That makes it to where we get a 37-second max duration, and also we get 5 seconds per weak point kill. And you might think, oh, well, that doesn't synergize too well because, well, you can't headshot with Peacemaker. Well, you actually can if the angle is just right, but also switching between your secondary weapon and your regulators is actually perfectly fine. Whenever you start to get low on duration, just rely on your secondary for a few kills. 5 seconds per kill is pretty nice. And also, since we're running that, we can go with Arcane Crepuscular, which grants us a little bit more strength and some extra critical damage, which for the regulators is very nice because they have pretty high crit damage. And again, we don't need much strength on this. Strength does affect your evade a little bit. It grants more duration, but really with just 170% strength for it, that's perfectly fine. It grants enough duration, I would say. And then this is where we start to get a little bit silly, because this is where I want to focus on finishers for one of the arcanes for the secondaries, which, to quickly show what I'm talking about, that is secondary outburst. And outburst relies on melee stacks, the combo multiplier. And to get a high combo multiplier to really make use of secondary outbursts and a combo multiplier that does not go away, we have to make use out of melee crescendo. And melee crescendo relies on finisher kills. And a method of getting finishers is with silence. Silence basically stuns enemies whenever they come into their radius, and also Savage Silence helps out with finishers a fair bit because you get way more extra damage. Now, it does seem a little bit silly to be running low range like this, but it actually does work because with low range like this, you're able to just walk up to the enemy and just bonk them. You definitely can go with higher range if you want to. You can go back with a neutral range that I was talking about earlier, but this low range is actually, it actually works out. And you can see we get 610% finisher damage, which really helps out. And we're trying out Arcane Trickery for just the finisher in this, but there are some other ways to get finishers, which I'll talk about a little bit later. And then next we have Pillage. Pillage still works out a fair bit. It helps Mesa with survivability some. You get about 1480 overshields in total. And then in this case, I'm just running a little bit of Streamline for the extra efficiency. Still got higher duration in this case for Pillage, because Pillage mostly relies off of duration. Then we can of course armor strip with this, and in this case this is actually supposed to be a crit build, which is why I'm running Combat Discipline with Arcane Avenger. This is the old setup before Hotshot became a thing. Combat Discipline, as long as you have a lower ranked Combat Discipline, Shatter Shield just completely negates the damage so that you're not taking any damage at all, but it will still proc Arcane Avenger, and that is a flat plus 45% crit chance. And then also this relies on the Cascadia Overcharge Arcane for secondaries, and that simply states that while overshields are active, you get plus 300% critical chance. So it's pretty easy crit chance, and the red crits really fly out with this. And then lastly, a bit more new, we got Jade Stars. In this case, we're not running primed redirection, which you notice that I run on a lot of these builds. I guess really just the first three, but Mesa, as you can see, has pretty low shields and health and armor. In this case, Vitality, we go with that just so that we get the double heat statuses. And Jade Stars is quite funny with this because regulators target a lot of enemies pretty dang fast. And then also we have a little bit more range. This also helps out with shooting gallery, so you can stun enemies within a 23.2 meter radius, which is pretty handy. Jade Stars is at a pretty low base radius, so you don't really need the range with it. It's 4 meters at base, that's kind of low. And it's really hard to it's really hard to spec into a bunch of range on Mesa because she kind of needs the strength and she kind of needs the efficiency, or at least just some sort of energy upkeep. But anyway, we'll start from the back. We'll start with Nourish. Going a little bit further though, we have Mesa Prime in this case. Now with this, you don't even need to format it at all, and you don't even need an arcane adapter. This is the build that I run, and it works completely fine because all we're doing is using its alternate fire, which grants us extra fire rate for our regulators. And it also does buff reload speed, ammo max, and give you less recoil. And all of these mods just simply spec into, well, basically fire rate, reload, that's about it. Just more quality of life stuff. And also amalgam serration, this helps out our sprint speed. Now there is quite a big difference between the prime and the normal Offentis, and that is with the radius from the alternate fire. So just quickly showing the normal Offentis, when you throw it, it creates a dome. This is how it looks like for the normal Offentis. If I go with Offentis Prime and throw it, it's a lot bigger. So this gives you a lot more breathability. I mean, you don't really have to stand that close to it. It really is quite nice. So that's why I would definitely recommend getting the Prime version over the normal version. And if you are curious about using the Offentis Prime as an actual weapon, it is pretty good. I have not completely built it up, but it does alright actually. It's just this alternate fire, really nice, and the buffs last for 40 seconds as long as you kill an enemy within that dome. If you want to throw in an arcane, definitely, I mean, feel free to. You can go with a primary dexterity or just something, some quality of life. I looked through the quality of life arcanes for primaries. There's nothing too crazy. There's one where applying an impact status effect grants you energy generation. It's pretty low though. And then also just quickly showing the Furex Wraith. You mostly want it for the amalgam Furex body count. This grants you extra fire rate, and that is quite handy. And then also in this case I'm running melee Kareen. It's a quality of life arcane. You don't actually need to use the melee for it. But now getting onto the regulators, there are actually quite a few builds you can do for them. You got the viral and heat one, classic, nothing crazy here. Running Cascadia Flare works perfectly fine. And you also got radiation and magnetic that you can do. Magnetic might and accelerated isotope, you get a little bit more fire rate and radiation, and then a little bit more crit damage and magnetic. And then we still do run heat. That way we can proc the arcane and also the archon shards. And also there's this heat build that's a fire rate build. You run anemic agility, lethal turret, and gunslinger. It's pretty funny. The fire rate you get with this is quite hysterical. I had overcharge on from earlier. Back to flare. So I guess just quickly showing off the regulators, just each one at a time, and then we'll also be showing the nourish build. So just not applying any more buffs, just showing the regulators themselves. They do fine damage. They do take a little bit build up. Of course, you gotta get some kills for the galvanized mods, and then also it does take 50 kills to get the archon shards fully procced. Really, 50 kills, that's not bad. And it's not even really something that you have to focus on because your regulators do heat damage. It's really easy to build up. And then you can see our crits are slowly getting higher. We do get red crits as well. Arcane hotshot is helping out with that. And now we're fully built up. You can tell that we're fully built up because of this symbol right here. It says 299%. That's where we're at with 4 of the heat shards. And also you can see right here, here's arcane hotshot, you got flare, you got arcane velocity, and so this classic viral and heat works out pretty dang well. But of course that's without using the Offentis Prime, not throwing it down and just going to town. You really get a lot of red crits with this. It works out pretty well. And of course I could actually apply my buffs, nourish and shooting gallery, and then again throw down the Offentis Prime, and that works a little bit better. You almost get to a point where it's like hard to tell how much better it's getting because enemies just die a little bit too fast. But this, I mean, yeah, that's good. And that's without a companion as well. We'll talk about the companion soon. There's just so much to talk about, actually. But you can see right here, there is the Ballistari Might from the Offentis. Lasts for 40 seconds whenever you get a kill. If you throw down the dome again, you can see the timer freezes. But 40 seconds, I mean, that's pretty in line with our abilities. Shatter Shield is 41 seconds. Nourish is 41 seconds. Works completely well. So then just showing the other regulators onto the radiation and magnetic one. Again, I gotta build up the archon shards every time I go into my loadout, so that's a little bit annoying. But also this will help out a bit with Eximus units because magnetic is good against Eximus units with overguard. This is the one problem with testing Mesa. You just gotta build up the darn heat shards every time. And so once we're built up, it's also pretty comparable to the viral and heat one. Of course, if I actually proc nourish, then I have viral and I still radiation, magnetic, all that stuff. So that's why Nourish is still pretty good, even though Bright Bonic exists. Like you see that was still pretty dang fast. And then lastly, just going with the heat one. This is where things get pretty funny. Again, I gotta build it up. Man, there's a lot more yap into this video than what I thought. I thought this would be over a little bit faster. Does not help that I have many builds to show. Alright, finally got it built up. And now showing it without Nourish, it works again pretty well. You can see a lot of red crits are happening. And if I actually go with Nourish and Shooting Gallery and a Mesa Prime as well, we get to go pretty dang fast then. It almost was not keeping up right there, and I mean that's good, and that's still without a companion. This is what I actually like to use the most, just because the fire rate is so hysterical. But just sticking with this viral and heat setup for a little bit, and then just showing some of the other builds. Again, Bright Bonnet, you throw it down at the start, you can go ahead throw another one down because Sculptor procs, and then just go ahead cast your abilities. I started right there, I'm sorry. And I mean the mushrooms just pulse over time. You still get quite a bit of radius because we're back to neutral range, so I can be over here, still get energy from them. I don't have to be glued to them practically for the energy. And of course I forgot to mention Bright Bonnet does grant you extra strength, so that does help out our Shooting Gallery a little bit. I guess it helps out our regulators a little bit. It doesn't matter too much for them. Now of course without Sculptor proc, we're on blind rage, so energy does deplete fairly fast, but the the mushrooms help us out just staying back up, and if we ever do get low, we can cast them again. I probably recommend this more so for mobile defense, survival, those types of missions where you're just going to be standing in one spot. And of course, you still can bounce on the mushroom if you want to. There is not a problem with that at all. I just kind of prefer to actually just be moving around. I like being able to bob and weave a fair bit. Oh yeah, and because we're on neutral range, our Shooting Gallery actually stuns enemies from a good distance. You can see it will occasionally target them, and I mean they can't shoot us at all. Granted, their AI is off right now. I'll unpause their AI after showing all these builds. Then we're on Evade right here. Again, we proc Evade, and then that gives us extra strength. Our abilities last for a good while in this case. You can see the timer right here for Evade, and whenever I get, okay, that's a Fentus. Whenever I get a headshot kill, we get an extra 5 seconds. And with Sickris, which that's what the secondary I like to use is, we can build up to 37 seconds just fine. Then we can go back to regulators. You're just alternating between your secondary and regulators a fair bit, and just quickly unpausing the AI. They don't know what to do. They just kind of stand there and they don't shoot us. So even though I have not tested this in level cap, I think it would work pretty well. Still got Shatter Shield for the extra damage reduction. It's kind of nice. And then, yeah, like I said, Arcane Crepuscular, it helps out your regulators with their crit damage a fair bit. And since we're doing some big crits with all the heat shards we got, we'll be doing a lot of crit damage. So there's Evade. Now Silence, this is, okay, I'll show this one last because that's going to take the most explaining. So Pillage, in this case, I like to go with Overcharge, as I mentioned. It's just really easy to get extra crit chance in that case. Probably pick up some orbs in the first place. So we'll just activate Pillage. We can activate it again to go ahead and strip all the enemies. It takes 2 or 3 goes in this case. 2 almost strips them, and then 3 fully strips them. Really, you don't need to do a full armor strip. I mean, really, just 1 pulse of Pillage works completely fine. You can see we're at 1480 shields in total. That pairs well. That pairs nicely with Shatter Shield, and then again Overcharge. We get pretty high crit chance. Of course, got to build it up a little bit again. Got to proc Avenger and Hot Shot. Oh man, the amount of butchering my words I'm doing. I'm sorry, I'm all over the place. And this is not even with all of our shards procced. We still have more build up to go, and we're just hitting all of the red crits right now. Fire rate is definitely a little bit on the slower side because we're not running velocity, but hey, these things hit hard. So really, you have a pretty chill time just messing around with all of this crit. And of course, we can go even higher with secondary outbursts, but that's Pillage, works pretty well. And then lastly, we got Jade Stars. I only recently got this actually. Had to subsume Sriracha and Onion, but we'll proc Jade Stars, and then we just go to targeting all the enemies. The Jade Stars in this case proc Hotshot and our Archon Shards. And because of that, we can actually, well, it would help if I got rid of this. In this case, we can actually go with a little bit of a different setup for our regulators. Instead, we could actually go with Conjunction Voltage if we want to. Replace the heat mod with Primed Convulsion. I know it's not maxed out right now. I gotta form out some of my other weapons. You see, if I try to max this out, I gotta form out Furious one more time, I think. But despite that, we still got Viral and Electricity, and we get more multi-shot from Conjunction Voltage. And since Jade Stars is proccing our heat, which helps us with the Archon Shards and Hot Shot, as I just mentioned, it works out pretty well. So I can proc Jade Stars and then just go to town with the regulators, getting extra hits. Really, I ran out of energy because I did not pick up any. Oh man, I hate when it does that. I want it to just give me all the heavy gunners again. Alright, there we go. So, yep, back at it. The Jade Stars, and the Jade Stars really do not refresh fast enough for regulators in this case, but it still does really help out. You can see at the top right, we're still proccing our hot shot, and oh my gosh, I did it again. Oh man, build videos, they are sometimes annoying to make. Oh yeah, and because we're on extra range, our shooting gallery stuns enemies. But you can sort of see the Jade Stars fly out. It's really hard to because of the regulators, but this is actually quite nice. A lot of hits going on. Conjunction Voltage, you can see from this icon right here. It's a pretty fun build, I would say. I want to test this out some more. Now, before just talking about the Silence build, I do think it is worth noting that if you do not have any sort of other energy income, basically if you're not running Nourish or Bright Bonnet, you might struggle for energy a little bit because Mesa is pretty energy hungry with how much you're casting regulators. Shatter Shield is 75 energy at base. Shooting Gallery is 50. Whatever subsume you have, probably 50. In that case, you'll probably want to have either Xenoric or a companion. The companion I run most of the time is Poggy. He is the best doggy. He is a Heckhound. This is my build for the most part. Sometimes I'll run Momentous Bond instead of Duplex Bond, or Duplex Bond instead of Synth Deconstruct. I'm testing this out right now, see how I like it. Synth Deconstruct drops health orbs when companions kill enemies. Duplex Bond, the clones can get energy orbs if they kill an enemy. They don't often kill an enemy. But also Poggy with Synergized Prospectus and Manifold Bond combined with also Momentous Bond. Synergized Prospectus will then proc a bunch of status effects, which with Galvanized Aptitude, or sorry, Galvanized Shot in this case, that direct damage grants so much. Because Akaten right here, it already has 6 status effects on it. It's going to be 7 because Synergized Prospectus grants electricity damage. Oh, and then also we got Reinforced Bond. This grants even more fire rate. So our regulators, you noticed before, they were at 54 for the heat build. Now it's at 63. And of course that will go even higher with Aphentis. But also another mod that might be worth talking about is Tenacious Bond. This does not work on Poggy, but if the companion you're using has a crit chance over 50%, then you get an extra 1.2x final crit damage multiplier. Kinda nice. Reinforced Bond, I think for the most part, is easier to proc. You only need 1200 max shields. If the companion has 350 base shields, then they'll be able to get the 1200 max shields. So quickly going back to my Nourish build and just showing what this can do with Poggy around. So he'll just burp up status effects here in a moment. Yep, there he goes. And now they're all just primed, and once you get Galvanized Shot procced, it does a ton of damage. As you can see right there, that's without my Archon Shards procced. I still had a lot more build up to do. And yep, there he goes again, burping out the status effects, and that's fast. To show how fast that is, we can run the Scaldra Dedicant Eximus, and this will probably just melt. I can also proc Nourish and Shooting Gallery. Let's see, he bursts them up again, and it's a little bit slower because, again, these guys are really tanky. But again, I do not have my build up. Oh, okay, well, maybe I was built up in that case. But you can see that's just a lot. And he does this status effect quite often. And you can, I mean, it's just hilarious. all the red. Yeah, that's nice. So that's just showing Poggy really quickly. He is the best doggy. But now to the silly stuff, silence. In this case, you're going to want to run with secondary outburst, and we'll talk about other secondary arcanes here in a little bit as well. But secondary outburst, and then for the Firax Wraith, we go with melee crescendo in this setup. Melee still kind of elude me a little bit on build setups. They are a little bit more complicated. I try my best to mod them out. This is what I got so far. Oh, and by the way, just the Sickris build, if you're curious, it's this. I'm just running barrel diffusion because I'm not running Praetos. Normally it would be this build. Since we're not running Praetos, I go with this build. And then if you're curious about the incarnates, there you go. There's evolution 1, which is of course base, then evolution 2, then evolution 3, then evolution 4. But now this is where things get just definitely silly. So silence, Pocket, I gotta switch these enemies around. That's right. I guess in this case, I'll just go with the Orcan Battle Group 225. So they're not stunned as soon as I walk up to one. You see, they get the symbol. After a little bit, they become unstunned. But if you walk away, then walk back, they become stunned again. You can pop them away and then just keep on running up on enemies and just bonking them. So that's what this build is about. The augment for silence helps us out a lot, because otherwise you're not doing that much finisher damage. You really need to hit the crits too. As you build up crescendo, that will get easier because of blood rush. Silence ran out right there. And then you just keep doing this until you get about 36 kills, I think it is, because you gotta get up to 220 combo. So of course this is a method for finishers. Oh, we went invis right there because of arcane trickery. This is definitely not the fastest method, and really I would not recommend doing this unless you're playing survival probably, or level cap, just some sort of endless mission, because this is kind of slow. You got to have some build up. I would probably not recommend this for a simple capture or exterminate mission. Maybe you could do it on mobile defense. I doubt it, but this is a silly method. Again, Savage Silence helps out a ton. But we have other methods of finishers, and the one that I would probably recommend is with Vazarin. Obviously, the con of this is that you do have to use Vazarin, but don't worry, there are still other methods of finishers. This one will probably just be the fastest. You can still proc Silence, get the extra finisher damage, but then Drifter, press your 2, that groups up all the enemies. We can go up to them and just slam them all down, and in that case we're already at 7 times combo. We can activate the incarnate form, that way we get a little bit more finisher damage. I guess I should show the evolutions. I don't think it matters too much with this finisher build, but here you go anyway. Is there a crit chance one? No, there's a crit damage on slide attacks. Alright, but this is definitely your fastest method of building up the melee crescendo. You can also use some other subsumes. You can run with Pool, or I think another one I tried was Airburst. The problem with that is that you do then need to have some range on your Mesa, so it does limit your build variety a little bit, but they are options, and we'll talk about other helmet subsumes shortly. But to just quickly show up how secondary outburst is, but now I am all the way at the 12x combo multiplier, and we're just going to permanently stay there. So now I'm just going to reset the enemies. Whenever I activate my 4, you can see at the top right, we get 240%. This is the max we can get for a secondary outburst, and we get improved crit chance and crit damage multiplier, and it can refresh whenever you activate your 4, but you do have to wait for the combo to actually go all the way up to 12x. You can see at the bottom right, whenever I use it, it resets the combo counter back to 0 and then just slowly builds back up. So if I refresh my 4 at the 12x, I'll refresh it actually. If I do so before then, it does not refresh. So just keep that in mind. But just quickly showing what this looks like with my heat shards maxed out. We can activate it, and then when we just go to 4, we get quite a bit of crit damage. Did my heat shards mess up or something? I feel like my crits should be higher than that. They definitely should. They should be like all reds. I don't know if something happened. I ran in the wrong build on this one. Okay, let me just like reset the simulacrum and then retry again. Those should be all reds. Sometimes simulacrum is a bit silly, but I will be right back shortly. Okay, we're back now. I reset everything, got everything built back up, and now we're starting to hit a little bit more of the red crits. Yeah, I don't know what happened before. Sometimes simulacrum is just a little bit finicky. It's like it doesn't register changes that you make to builds or whatever. Yeah, this is with secondary outburst fully built up, and you can see that it's definitely a lot of red. I did throw back on hot shot instead of the trickery. I think hot shot will probably be better over trickery, especially since you're going with all these crits. But yeah, that's pretty nice. Switching back to Modrai though, and again, just one more build for finishers. There is actually another one. The other one that I just cannot really show right now is for, it would help if I actually went to the melee. It's actually for Obex, the Obex Incarnate. Whenever you do a finisher, sorry, my dog is barking. She's so loud, I don't know why she barks so much. Corgis. But the Obex Incarnate, whenever you get a finisher kill or attack, it does an AoE effect, and the AoE kills from it actually proc crescendo as well. So basically, if you do one finisher, whatever enemies you kill with that finisher will also build to crescendo. So basically one finisher kill and you could basically have crescendo fully built up if things are lined up very, very well. But if things line up pretty well, then really it could maybe take 3 or 4 kills instead for crescendo to fully be built up. I do not have the Obex Incarnate though, so sadly I cannot show that. What I can show though actually is Bronco Prime. There's an augment for it, the dizzying rounds, which grant plus 200% status chance, and whenever you shoot an enemy that you are close to, it will stun them and open them up to finishers. So for this build, we really spec into just status effects and also status chance. That helps us to get condition overload pretty well procced up. And so with this, if we just simply take Bronco over to an enemy, we can go up to them, shoot them, it stuns them, and then we can finisher them. Again, our finisher damage is a little bit to be desired. Granted, I need to actually proc silence, that helps too. But bonk, and then just bonk them around. And I mean, was silence proc for the extra finisher damage? That does a fair bit. So just bonk, and then dink them around. This is just another method for finisher builds. Again, you're probably best off with Vazarin. Maybe the Prisma Obex Incarnate too. I just sadly cannot show that. I do not have it. But Vazarin definitely going to be your best bet. However, secondary outbursts, you definitely don't need to go for it. You can be just fine with Flare and whatever other arcanes. This one just silly, fun, messing around. Nourish is definitely what I use the most. It's just all reliable. It works in all content. Nourish is very good. Evade is probably what I would use for level cap. Bonnet is for just those stationary missions. Silence is for messing around. Pillage is also kind of for messing around. Jade Stars, I need to test around a little bit more. Might be kind of funny. So with that out of the way, what other secondary arcanes might you be interested in? Well, Cascadian Powered, I mean, I guess it can work. Secondary Encumber, maybe. The one kind of issue with regulators is that they do have pretty low status chance. If there's ever an arcane that buffs status chance, that might be pretty useful for regulators, because they have 10% at base. That's pretty low. I guess the other arcanes that might be potential options later in this game's life would be Secondary Shiver, if there's ever a good method of applying a bunch of cold status effects to a group of enemies. There is obviously Melee Careen, which we're on. We can definitely mess around with it some, because you roll through enemies, they get times 10 cold stacks. Although I guess Secondary Shiver does sound better on paper. 45% damage per cold status. It maxes out at 10. That's 450% damage. Cascadia Flare is 480%. So maybe this isn't too good actually. The one that I think might be better later on is Secondary Irradiate. The one problem with this is that there's not really a good method right now of applying 10 stacks of radiation to a group of enemies, because currently the only helmets that you can actually use. Let me go back to my back room here in 1 second. Let me just make sure I got everything setup. My fashion, it matters, man. But the only helmets that can proc radiation are just not good for secondary radiate. There's Chirinka Pillar. This is just a status effect every few seconds, so that does not get you to the ×10. Brightbond does not do radiation. It's just saying that it radiates. Gloom, okay, I need to actually type in radiation. Okay, it does not pull up the full thing. Okay, whatever. Chirinka Pillar, not good. I mean, Breach Surge also, where is it? There it is. It also can do radiation, but it's a 20% status chance, and that would only be 1 stack, so that's not good. You might think, oh, I'll just use Smite. And yeah, Smite does apply 10 stacks of radiation, but it's only to the one target that you target, actually. Enemies that are hit by the AoE effect of Smite are not under radiation status effects at all. They don't even get 1 stack of it, I don't think. So really, there's just not a current helmet option that's really good at giving a ton of radiation stacks. You could run Smite for the augment, Smite Infusion, but still at that point, that's kind of just extra steps because you would have to run Epitaph, and yeah, just not a good method for secondary irradiate on regulators at the moment. But if there ever is a good method of applying radiation in the future, that could be really good for secondary irradiate. Maybe a companion could be good at radiation status. Oh gosh, man, I kind of threw up in my mouth and that threw me off. But yeah, secondary irradiate is just what I kind of have my eye on for the future. Maybe one day there will be a good method of proccing it. Right now, there isn't really. There's some other good frames that are good for it, like Oberon, I think is pretty good, and it can definitely be good on some other secondary weapons. Like for example, over here on Furious, I have an irradiate build. It's for the incarnate form, but yeah, I mean, yeah, it works pretty well on this. But anyway, I think that's all the Mesa build talking I got to say for now. Definitely try out whatever you want to. Mess around with your own builds. Forgot to mention it, gosh darn it. But glaives, my dog is still barking, I'm sorry. If you don't want to use Furex, you can also use glaives for Mark of the Beast, granting extra status and crit chance for secondary weapons, which does apply to regulators. And there's Combo Fury that doesn't really matter for regulators, but this mod, it does proc and it can be quite fun, extra crit and status. And then just again quickly before I hop off, if you're thinking about some other helmet options, make sure they work actually. I tried out airburst rounds. It does not work with Mesa's regulator, sadly. It does work with Hildren, funny enough. You could definitely run with Eclipse, that would give you some extra damage reduction, which would help against those AoEs and status effects. Or you can have the extra damage from it, that too would work. You could try out Null Star with Neutron Star. It would kind of work similar to Jade Stars, but you would need definitely quite a bit of range for that. You definitely want duration for Neutron Stars. You could, of course, go with Roar if you want to. Shock Trooper does not work. Neither does Smite Infusion. Remember that. Maybe you could try out Theros Lethality. That does require range again. No, Thermal Transfer does not work. I remember trying that. But anyway, that's all I got to talk about for Mesa now. That was a long video, my golly. I know I probably stuttered a lot along the way. My train of thought was just all over the place. But anyway, hopefully the heirloom looks great in game. I'm looking forward to it, and hopefully you all enjoy Mesa. She's definitely a good frame. I kind of got a little bit tired of it after some time of just running so much 4. I actually wanted to run my weapons a fair bit, but Mesa is definitely at least still in my top 10 favorite frames, and she'll always be pretty good, that is for sure. But anyway, that's all I got to talk about for now. Let me know what builds you felt like trying. Anyway, I'll see you all in whatever I do next.